This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it in
Yeah,
me.
stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common
But
sense.
my homework is
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Steve Gruber Show. 7 minutes after the top of the hour. Good to have you along. If you'd like to join the conversation today, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. I'm Duran Martinez, in for Steve Gruber. My usual spot here on the Michigan Talk Network is Wild Michigan, 2 hours of outdoors radio here on much of the Michigan Talk Network or all over the world. You can pick up my podcast at wildmichiganradio.com. University of Michigan has received $294.5 million in funding over fiscal year 2015, bringing its total endowment to $10 billion, billion with a B. As of June 30th, the school's endowment had reached the $10 billion mark, up from $9.7 billion the previous year. Many of the investment gains and new endowment gifts received by the university this year were a result of fundraising efforts, including the Victors of Michigan campaign, which has a fundraising goal of $4 billion. University of Michigan officials announced Thursday that the school's total endowment is the 9th largest among all U.S. universities. Total cash and investments for the University of Michigan stood at $11.7 billion as of the end of June 30th. Michigan State University is honoring former President Bill Clinton, who is expected to accept an award and speak next month on the campus. The East Lansing University announced Thursday Clinton is the first recipient of the Spartan Statesmanship Award for distinguished public service. Oh, boy. He's set to speak November 18th at the Governor Jim Blanchard Public Service Forum. The former Michigan governor and his wife, Janet, donated $1 million to Michigan State to create the award and forum. Blanchard earned a bachelor's and master's degree from the university. He was a U.S. ambassador to Canada during the Clinton administration after serving 2 terms as governor. Blanchard says in a statement, Clinton's political, public service, and work through the Clinton Foundation are exactly the type of dedication and inspiring story we hoped to bring. 888-900-9966. If you would like to join the conversation with us today, we would love to have you here. Interesting. I didn't realize that former Governor Jim Blanchard is worth so much money, donated $1 million to Michigan State. Good for him. But Bill Clinton back in Michigan, coming up on the 18th of November. I think I'll be deer hunting that day. Suburban Detroit man convicted of arranging his wife's death began giving testimony as part of his efforts to get a new trial. Bob Bashara told a Wayne County Circuit Judge Thursday that Jane Bashara gave him permission to have extramarital affairs because the couple was unable to have sex due to medical conditions. Prosecutors have said that Bashara had his wife killed so he could live a new life with another woman. Bob Bashara wants his murder conviction and life sentence thrown out, saying his rights were violated by an ineffective defense. He returns to the stand on Friday. Jane Bashara of Grosse Pointe Park was found dead in 2012. Prosecutors have said 57-year-old Bob Bashara coerced handyman Joe Gentz into strangling her. Gentz was convicted of second-degree murder. A man convicted in the stabbing death of a 50-year-old man who allowed his killer and others into his Michigan home to keep warm while drinking beer has been sentenced to life in prison. Roger Davis was sentenced Thursday in Kent County Circuit Court. He was found guilty last month of first-degree murder, robbery, and arson. Richard Preby was stabbed and set afire last November in his Byron Township home near Grand Rapids. His wallet, debit card, and checkbook were taken. John Liebeck and Angie Smith pleaded guilty to the robbery, not murder. Liebeck has been sentenced to 30 to 45 years in prison, and Smith faces a November 12th sentencing. Preby's sister, Kathy Renard, said during the hearing that relatives couldn't even see him to say goodbye. Joan Leslie, whose expressive almond eyes and innocent beauty made her one of the most popular film ingenues of the 1930s and 40s, has died at the age of 90. She died in Los Angeles on Monday. Her family announced in an obituary after signing with Warner Brothers at the age of 15. Her first major role was in High Sierra as the disabled Velma opposite Humphrey Bogart and Ida Lupino. In her 20-year career, the Detroit native performed over 30 films. She romanced Gary Cooper in Sergeant York, a great flick, danced with Fred Astaire in The Sky's the Limit, and sang with Jimmy Cagney in Yankee Doodle Dandy. After marrying physician William Caldwell in 1950, she put her career on hold to raise her twin daughters and do charity work. 12 minutes after the top of the hour, it's the Steve Gruber Show. I'm Duran Martinez. Sitting in for Steve. And yes, I've had a miserable cold for 2 weeks, and the medication, I think, is finally affecting what's left of my brain here this week. But I appreciate it. Again, it is a Friday. We are muddling through this day as we come to the end of the week here on the Steve Gruber Show, and probably a fitting ending to it as well. Chief executives of 10 of the world's biggest oil and gas companies are pledging support for an effective deal to fight global warming at a Paris conference next month. In a statement, the CEOs of BP, Shell, Saudi Aramco, Total, Repsol, Statoil, Eni, Petróleos Mexicanos, Reliance Industries, and BG Group say they recognize greenhouse gas emissions trends are inconsistent with the ambition to keep warming below a level many consider dangerous. Burning coal, oil, and gas for energy is a key emissions source. The companies are offering to help by reducing flaring and methane emissions from oil and gas operations. They're also calling for replacing coal with cleaner burning natural gas in power generation. Greenpeace says the company's offer contains nothing meaningful and accuses them of undermining effective climate action. Well, Greenpeace, don't you have a whale to save or something else, just so we don't have to hear you talk? Again, my opinions, not those of the Steve Gruber Show or the Michigan Talk Network. I'm Duran Martinez. Feel free to call me out on Facebook if you'd like. Join me at Wild Michigan, facebook.com/Wild Michigan, or you can call me right here, 888-900-9966, here on the Michigan Talk Network.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense. Filling in for Steve Gruber, here's Duran Martinez.
Welcome back to the Steve Gruber Show, 18 minutes after the top of the hour. It's a Friday. 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Would love to have you on today. We're joined by Chief Joel Shults, operates Street Smart Training and is the founder of the National Center for Police Advocacy, a retired chief of police in Colorado. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hi, Duran. Good to talk with you.
Good to talk with you as well. I want to talk a little bit about law enforcement and the difficult job they have, and not likening what happened this morning to me to law enforcement, but every day these guys and gals have to recognize a threat. This morning I was at a Tim Hortons, okay, in the drive-thru, and it's pitch black out. It's about 10 after 5 this morning. I'm approached by somebody while I'm in my vehicle, a woman carrying a large coffee and a sandwich in each hand, waving at my car, kind of weird, then proceeds to come up to my car window and start to rap on my car window. I just kind of waved her off. Fortunately, she just left. But because of both hands full, I didn't see an immediate threat there. But I don't think I should have to do that at 10 after 5 in the morning. But law enforcement has to do it every day.
Well, what you experienced, Duran, was something that was a little out of the ordinary. So you have a template in your head about what normal behavior is, and when you see something that's different than that, your brain gives you all kinds of caution signals. And if I had the opportunity to take your blood pressure and your pulse and look at your brain waves, I probably would be able to see what police officers are experiencing virtually every moment of their shift.
And it's difficult, too, because the public doesn't get a real grasp of what they go through on a daily basis. They only get the tidbits of information from the news media, and from what the news media has shown, it's all been a lot of hype and only the most extreme cases. They don't see the constant battle, if you will, that they go through every day.
Well, and to put a positive spin on that, I like to think that the public does not have to experience what police officers experience because we kind of absorb that impact for them. And so the lack of awareness that the public has is a sign that we're doing a good job in sparing them those kinds of experiences.
But I mean, to get probably a more positive opinion of law enforcement. Now, mind you, not everyone on the job is as good as we would have them believe. But I do you think the media is not doing a good enough job to shed the positive light?
Well, as I recently wrote, one of the problems that the media has, and that we can't really blame them for, is a lack of good data about what police officers experience. We only marginally report some of the most extreme behavior in an official way, in a statistical way, and so a lot of it ends up being speculation or some kind of questionable statistics and facts that are gathered by critics and police haters.
What do you think would be the best way for them to better explain some of the things that are going on? I mean, look, I work in this industry, and I'm not a big fan of the generating a hype over something for clicks and for a revenue generation drawn by these sensational stories.
Well, the Congress recently passed something called the Pride Act, which is going to require police agencies, reporting police agencies. Of course, it's always going to be voluntary, so that minimizes the accuracy. But of assaults against officers when shots are fired, all kinds of things that we currently don't have a good picture of. And while that's a tedious addition to what police officers have to do and police agencies have to do, it should, in 2 or 3 years, give us at least a little bit more accurate picture of the real threat against police officers, which is, I can't overstate it. You know, we don't want to be so dramatic to say, oh, yeah, I'm laying my life on the line every day, but really the frequency of assaults on officers, not just mere resisting, but physical assaults on officers is vastly, vastly underreported.
Speaking with Chief Joel Shults here on the Steve Gruber Show, I'm looking at your report, and it says not measured accurately are the injuries to officers, non-lethal shootings of suspects, and the violent encounters at all. None of these are reported accurately.
No, and in fact, police officers, as I have surveyed them, police officers will tell me that they don't even report when they get assaulted because they know they're not going to get prosecuted. The offenders are not going to be prosecuted. They don't get victims' rights, which are guaranteed in almost every state in the country. Police officers are routinely denied the kinds of victim rights that regular citizens are when they get assaulted or have violence perpetrated against them. And so it's very frustrating, and it leads, I think, to a lot of long-term trouble for police officers and the way that they serve.
Yeah, one of the reports you have says 24% of the officers reported being threatened with a deadly weapon. 80% reported being threatened with an assault if caught off duty by an offender.
Yeah, and this is not an idle threat. We also have a significant percentage, 9 out of 10 officers report being threatened with retaliation for doing their job. 1 of 5 officers has had personal property vandalized by offenders. More than 1 in 10 officers didn't report being assaulted because they know there'll be no prosecution. It just goes on and on. And again, we know a fireman's going to get a burn every once in a while. An EMT is going to get a needle stick every once in a while. Police officers are going to get assaulted. So we understand that's part of the job, but we don't have an understanding of how pervasive that is. If there were a victim class of 750,000 treated by the criminal justice system the way our police officers are treated when they're victimized, there'd be a huge hue and cry, and it would be it'd be a huge public safety issue. But it's just unknown. It's a shadow figure.
Chief Joel Shults, we appreciate your time here. Appreciate the stats and the information on what's not reported here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Steve Gruber Show. I'm Duran Martinez. You're listening to us on the Michigan Talk Network.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense. Filling in for Steve Gruber, here is Duran Martinez. Welcome
back to the Steve Gruber Show. I'm Duran Martinez, 27 minutes away from the top of the hour on a Friday. We'll be taking your predictions for the Michigan State game coming up at 8:45 today. Would love to hear what you have to say. I got a song picked out for that already, too, by the way. My song for that. And Ken Braun joins us. Ken, I love how this starts. Ken Braun is Braun, and I knew I was going to do that because Alex told me not to say it that way. Ken Braun is a Sparty. Girlfriend Kathy Hookstra is a Wolverine fan. Ken, how is your household right now?
Very hateful. Yeah. We wake up on Saturday mornings, kiss each other goodbye, and say, have a horrible day, you too, and off we go. So, yeah, that's pretty much the way it goes. Yeah,
I'm in the same thing at home. My girlfriend Sarah, a big Spartan fan. I, on the other hand, a major fan of the Maize and Blue, and it's nasty right now because her brother Patrick is a huge fan of the Maize and Blue also, and man, I tell you what, I would not have wanted to see that family. I mean, mine was bad enough, but that being said, we've just lost money. We've just lost $1.7 million in that time as our debt, $18.4 trillion in the U.S. We laugh about football, but looking at money, it's astonishing. We can't even cry about it.
Yeah, I mean, every 2.5 minutes is we burn up that $1.7 million in debt and moves upward. I mean, there's enough $57,000, I believe, $54,000, $57,000 per person. So you have a household of 4 people. You could pretty much buy that household a middle class home and have $70 grand left over to split between the 2 kids, get them a college education, buy them a retirement fund. I mean, that's a lot of money that could have been spent on other things that we just have IOUs or red ink for right now. And we now have a higher debt than we have GDP. So everything we all make in 1 year wouldn't pay for what our federal debt is right now, and we need to get a handle on it.
Governor Rick Snyder, looking at Senate Bill 306, would make Michigan the 5th state to join the compact for a balanced budget. How does that all work? How do we just say as a state, we've had enough?
What the compact for a balanced budget would do, if it's a constitutional amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and what it would do in a nutshell is very simple. It would allow the states, a majority of the states, to become effectively co-signers on adding any more to that $18.4 trillion. We pretty much say, you know what, if we're going to deficit spend any more, Congress, you need to get 26 state legislatures to say, yes, this is a valid reason to borrow more money. You've got our permission. Go forth and grab the money, and require Congress and the president to tell those states to give them an important reason to do it. If the 9/11 attacks in 2001, we had extraordinary challenges going on. Probably would have gotten it in that situation. Pearl Harbor, and you can imagine all sorts of scenarios where states would have, a majority of states would have quickly turned around and said, yes, absolutely, we need to spend the money, go for it. But there's a lot of things that we borrow money for in collective, in large batches of ideas or singular ideas that maybe we wouldn't have done if there were more eyeballs looking critically at whether we needed, that was a need or a want. And that's really what this is about, allowing the states to get into the decision-making process so that all of us can talk to lawmakers right near, close to our own homes. And like I said, just a backstop on the decision-making, a co-signer on the credit card, rather than just giving Congress the unilateral authority to make this decision for us.
Ken Braun, Director of Policy for InformationStation.org, also a political reporter for MLive, reports earlier today that we've eliminated $148 billion from defense spending, but yet we're going up in other places. Do we have an idea where this money is going right now? I mean, it just seems to be spending all willy-nilly. I don't know where it's going as a citizen.
Well, you can look at the big stuff that you see out there. I mean, the defense spending clearly is a costly aspect of government. Entitlement programs and government, the money government spends on health care is a pretty substantial pile of money as well. And we have, we spend almost 20% of our GDP on health care in this country. You can look at it, and it's very government regulated, very government controlled. We talk about, and it always has been for, decades now. And there's a country like Singapore, just as wealthy as ours, has a much more desegregated or dispersed system, more decision-making in the hands of patients. They spend 4% on their GDP. Their government's involved in it as well, but it doesn't spend anywhere near as much money. And so, yeah, health care, defense spending, we have, myriad things that you just see out there that government does that, some of it you want done. Do we need a military that's multiple times larger than the next one down the line? Or could we think a little smarter about where we need to deploy that military and how much of it we need? There's communities where we put defense factories, defense plants that are done for political reasons, not for military necessity, but simply because Congress is making those decisions and on political grounds, and it costs us money and it costs us that debt.
Ken Braun is our guest here on the Steve Gruber Show. It's a staggering amount because last I knew it was at $17 trillion, but then again I blinked my eyes and we're at 18.4, and it's going up incrementally every couple of minutes.
Yeah. The last Michigan State game, it was closer to 17, right? Right.
Well, yeah, that's just it. This morning, I'm not kidding. I'm listening to another newscast this morning, and I'm listening. And wait a minute. When did we turn 18?
Right.
Did we not have the party for 18 trillion? I must have missed this.
It's like a child that you only see every now and then. The child of a friend. Wow, how did it grow up so fast? Right there, you go.
Yeah, it's graduating college right now. It's headed towards masters,
right.
Literally. But on a state level, we can at least say, that this is enough, and we need to get together with other states involved. Who else is looking at the same thing we're doing? Because who else is fed up essentially?
Well, the way it needs to work, you have to get 3/4 of the states to ratify an amendment to the Constitution, to submit the amendment, to ask Congress to submit the amendment to them for ratification. So the people that run this Compact for a Balanced Budget operation, the people that are trying to get this done, are targeting, a large number of states. Clearly, they need 38. They've got 4 already. Alaska, I believe Mississippi, Alabama, and one of the states in the Northeast that's escaping me right now, or up toward the Northeast. And Michigan, they've got the 3. Michigan, I believe, would be the 4th that they would have. And they've only been at it for a year and a half or so, so they're really getting, just getting started. The fact they've got these, and we're halfway done in Michigan. The Michigan Senate's already approved this bill on a more or less super majority vote. They didn't need it, and it's in the Michigan House. So Michigan's pretty close to joining this compact. They just need to get it through the House and get the governor to sign it. But then, we'd need. I think it is 4 states. Michigan would be 5th, actually, and then they need 33 more. And once that's done, it goes to the Congress and comes back to the states, and then the legislatures would. As soon as we get to 3/4 of the states ratifying, it would become whatever amendment to the Constitution that would be the next one up.
All right, Ken Braun, appreciate you joining us. InformationStation.org. Check him out. It's the Steve Gruber Show on the Michigan Talk Network.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world. Filling in for Steve Gruber, here's Duran Martinez.
Welcome back to the Steve Gruber Show. I'm Duran Martinez. About an hour from now, we'll take your predictions for the Michigan State game. If you'd like to join us in the conversation on a Free-for-All Friday, 888-900-9966. Would love to hear what you have to say today. Ed Haislmaier is joining us right now here on the show. Given the choice, public sector workers quit their unions. I kind of saw this coming in a lot of places, Michigan especially, with the right to choose if you want to belong to a union or not. And when you think of Republican areas, you don't really think of Seattle, but that's one of the places that they're quitting the unions. Ed, welcome to the Steve Gruber Show. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. So what, if given the choice, people want to quit the union? Say it ain't so.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's surprising because in Michigan, a big union state, I know a lot of guys that work the line and are union members, but they don't follow the union politics. Secretly, they vote on their own, and it seems to be a trend in other places as well.
Yeah, no, and you know, I'm not sure if we're going to do this. Well, I do healthcare policy, so I think we were supposed to do a different interview. But
well, my apologies. I was on the wrong end of that. But okay, go ahead.
Because I thought we were talking about the co-ops. Sorry.
Oh, absolutely. So again, my apologies. I've looked at this information all wrong this morning, but senior research.
I think right to work is works, but it's not my expertise.
Okay. Well. Please continue this morning.
Well, no, we were talking. They had asked me to come and talk about. We had several of these Obamacare health insurers called cooperatives that were set up. The government funded them, kind of like what they did in trying to start up green energy projects. Give a lot of money out there. Well, now we've had 6 of them go bankrupt and be shut down, and the latest one was one in Tennessee. Just the other day, it's being shut down.
Really?
Yeah. So, the whole problem with this was that they tried to, as I say, reinvent the wheel, and then they decided to make it oval. So it didn't really work very well, because the idea was that we would have people who would be member-owned cooperative insurance companies, but nobody bothered to check the fact that, well, we've had those in this country for about 150 years. So, for example, if you see the word mutual, like Mutual of Omaha,
mm-hmm.
or State Farm, or Northwestern Mutual, which is headquartered near you in Milwaukee, those are member-owned companies.
Interesting.
We already knew how to do this.
People helping people, not helping people.
Yeah. So they went ahead and had the federal government say, well, gee, we'll spend $6 billion on loans to these people to do it. But we won't let them use any of the money to market themselves. So how are you going to tell people you got a new business? And we don't want anybody who's from an insurance company involved, because that would be a conflict of interest. So so the Obamacare tells them to go out and do this, but then ties their hands. So now we've got them all failing.
Well, it seems that a lot of things were set up to fail through this administration currently. I think a lot of it is they just didn't think any of this stuff through. Well, let's not go crazy with the obvious here. But But I mean, when you're given money to for a project like that, but not allowed to market yourself or make yourself known, it's rather difficult to have any form of success whatsoever.
Yeah, well, see, what they did is they said, well, we'll give you this money, but we don't want you to waste the money on marketing. This is government money. Okay, but then by setting it up the way you did, you made sure they couldn't get any private money either, because nobody's going to, I mean, why would anybody loan the money? They couldn't sell stock. How are they going to raise capital privately? Well, they couldn't.
And yet, but they're expected to go on their own and to have this be successful. Right, to go forth and prosper without any form of help whatsoever. So how are these programs supposed to work? I mean, look, we see it's obvious that they're almost set up to fail. I mean, literally set up to fail. But again, like you said, there was no foresight in this.
Right, yeah. And so, what there was $6 billion of appropriations. That's what, and people, obviously, if you put enough money out there, somebody's going to go for it. And so some people did. And you have 23 of these co-ops. But so far, only one, possibly two of them are in really decent financial situation. And again, 6 have already been closed down. They either shut themselves or the state insurance regulators stepped in and said, look, you keep digging a hole. First thing is we're going to stop you digging any further. Then we're going to wind you down.
Unbelievable that these that the money is spent.
Well, fortunately, they only spent 2.4 of the $6 billion before Congress. No, I'm sorry. They spent about 3.5 of the $6 billion before Congress stepped in and took the rest away.
Well, yeah. Well, see, there was a little bit of an idea right there that they come in, they say, well, it's not working. We're just going to shut it down completely and keep the rest of our money. But at the same time, no marketing, no way of getting this out to the people. And yet we're forced with Affordable Care Act, a tax, in my personal opinion, one that I refuse to pay. And I noticed today somebody who got a bill from the IRS for not following the Affordable Care Act.
You mean the individual mandate penalty?
Yeah, that one. I like yours better.
Actually, we're coming up on open season again. It starts in November 1. And, one of the things, I haven't written this yet, but I'll give the audience a preview. One of the things I'm going to write about is if you are buying individual insurance, say you're a self-employed person, and, one of my brothers does that. I used to do that when I was self-employed. You buy your own. If you make too much money to get a subsidy, stay away from the exchanges. Go buy your insurance either on e-health insurance or through a broker or directly from the company. There are a number of reasons for doing that. One is that you're probably you certainly won't pay more, and you might actually pay less for the same policy because the insurer doesn't have to add on the user fee that goes to fund the Obamacare exchange.